Welcome back. At this point, you should have a better understanding of supply and demand curves and the equilibrium price and quantity and how they're established. But we still haven't talked about why our apples change price. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to look at the 4 situations that will cause price and quantity to change and look at the factors that will cause those changes to happen. The 4 factors that will cause a price to change are an increase in demand, a decrease in demand, an increase in supply, and a decrease in supply. Let's first take a look at an increase in demand. What we have in this situation is a product that's become more popular for some factors that we'll take a look at in a second. Sellers see that consumers are looking to buy this product to a greater extent, and they respond by increasing their price as the demand increases. They'll see lineups and people waiting for products, and as a result they realize they can charge more for their product. So as with an increase in demand, we see the price go up and people still willing to buy more of that product, and that's an increase in demand. Now let's take a look at a decrease in demand. What we have is a product that's become less popular, and we'll take a look again at the reasons why that may have happened. What we have is a situation where people don't desire the product to the same extent. As a result, sellers are going to have a tougher time selling that product. So what do we see happen? Well, sellers are going to have to put their product on sale, so we see the price decrease, and at the same time, because consumers want it less, the quantity purchased decreases as well. Things can also change on the supply side. Let's take a look at an increase in supply. Now there are a number of factors that will cause the increase in supply to happen, and we'll look at those factors in a second. But right now, let's just talk about what an increase in supply is. What that means is there's a greater amount of that product available. And to sell this extra amount of the product that's now produced, the seller is going to have to decrease its price to get buyers to now buy the product who weren't previously going to purchase it. In order to do that, again, they lower their price, so we're going to see price fall and the quantity purchased increase because now there's more of that product. And that is an increase in supply. The last factor that can cause a change in the equilibrium price and quantity is a decrease in supply. So just like an increase in supply meant more of the product was available, a decrease in supply means there's less of that product available. And once again, we'll look at the factors that could cause the decrease in supply in a second. So what happens when there's less of that product out there? Well, sellers know now that there's less of the product and they're able to charge a greater amount because there's still all those consumers who wanted to purchase that product before, and they're going to be able to get the people who really wanted to pay just a little bit more. So less of the product is available, so the quantity is going to drop, and because the consumers still want to buy that product now at a higher price, the price is going to increase. So with a decrease in supply, quantity drops and the price increases, and that's a decrease in supply. Let's now take a look at the factors that will cause our demand and supply to increase or decrease. The first factor that will shift our demand for a product is something called tastes and preferences. This is basically our desire for the product, how popular or how trendy it is. You know that if something becomes the hot thing that you have to have, well, the demand for that product then is going to increase. Conversely, if something becomes unpopular, or perhaps a study comes out that indicates that the product may be harmful or dangerous, well then the demand for that product is going to decrease. So this is pretty straightforward. The more popular something becomes, the more in demand it becomes, and the demand will increase. The less popular, demand will decrease, and that's tastes and preferences. The second factor that will change our demand for a product is expectations. And this is basically where if we believe the price of a product, let's say, is going to increase in the future and it's going to be more expensive, well, what are you going to do? You're going to buy more of it right now and stock up if you can. That means the demand for that product is going to increase right now when we believe the price is going to increase in the future. Conversely, if we expect the price to fall in the future and we're able to, we're going to delay that purchase until the future. As a result, the demand for that product right now is going to decrease. So, if we believe the price is going to increase, demand increases right now as we buy up before the price increase, and conversely, when demand will decrease when we believe the price is going to drop in the future. And that's expectations. The next factor that will change the demand for a product is population size. And this one's pretty straightforward. Let's say the population in your area doubles. Well, all those new people, they need to purchase products. As a result, the demand for the products in your area is going to increase because there's more people. Conversely, if people were to move away from your area, well then there'd be less people purchasing products, and the demand for those products would then decrease because there's fewer people. And that's the impact of population size. The last factor that we're going to talk about that will change your demand for the product is income level. Let's say you won the lottery. What would you do? You'd probably start running out and buying a whole bunch of things. That means your demand for those products has increased. Therefore, as your income goes up, your demand for products increases. Conversely, if suddenly you lost your job or had a pay cut at work, well, now you have less money and therefore you're not able to purchase all the products you did before. That causes your demand for those products to decrease. So when your income goes up, your demand increases, and when your income drops, demand decreases. And that's income level. And those are the factors that we're going to look at that will shift a demand curve. Now let's take a look at the factors that will shift a supply curve. The first factor that will change a seller's willingness to supply a product are costs. These are the input costs, the materials they use to make the product. For example, if the cost of a material goes up, now it becomes more expensive for that seller to make the product, and therefore they're less willing to provide it at the same price. So if the cost of labor, let's say, increases, then the amount of sellers willing to provide that same product at the same price drops. Conversely, if their costs go down, then suddenly they're willing to supply a greater amount of that product at the same price, and that's costs. The next factor that will change the supply of a product are the number of sellers. As there become more and more businesses selling the same product, the supply of that product increases. So if there's more stores selling the same product, the supply goes up. Conversely, if there are fewer sellers selling that product, the supply drops. Pretty straightforward, number of sellers. The next factor that will change a seller's willingness to supply a product is technological breakthrough. This is where we have some sort of development or discovery that will cause a product to be able to be produced more efficiently or perhaps at a lower cost. As a result, sellers are willing to provide more of that product at the same price. Typically, this only happens the one way. We don't see a lot of technological regression where we lose knowledge. However, it is possible. But technological breakthroughs often lead to sellers saying they're willing to provide more of that product for a given price. The last factor that will change the supply of a product is nature and the environment. And this goes back to our original example of the apples. So why did they go up in price? Perhaps there was a frost that destroyed most of the apple crop, or a parasite or something like that that wiped out the apples. It caused the supply of apples to decrease. And because there were fewer apples, people had to pay more to get the few apples that were out there. And that was a decrease in supply. Now this can work the other way. Perhaps conditions are perfect or ideal, and there's just the right amount of rain and those for crops. So perhaps that's what happened with our oranges. Ideal conditions in Florida led to there being a huge orange crop. All these extra oranges, what are they going to do to sell them? Well, they've got to lower the price. So an increase in supply causes the price to fall. And that is nature and the environment. When conditions are good, supply increases. When conditions are bad, the supply drops.